Chapter 12. More Creatures. One day, from morning till night, they had been passing through a forest. As soon as the sun was down, Curdie began to be aware that there were more in it than themselves. First, he saw only the swift rush of a figure across the trees at some distance. Then he saw another, and then another at shorter intervals. Then he saw others both further off and nearer. At last, missing Lena and looking about after her, he saw an appearance almost as marvellous as herself steal up to her and begin conversing with her after some beast fashion which evidently she understood. Presently, what seemed a quarrel arose between them, and stranger noises followed, mingled with growling. At length it came to a fight, which had not lasted long, however, before the creature of the wood threw itself upon its back and held up its paws to Lena. She instantly walked on, and the creature got up and followed her. They had not gone far before another strange animal appeared, approaching Lena, when precisely the same thing was repeated, the vanquished animal rising and following with the former. Again, and yet again and again, a fresh animal came up, seemed to be reasoned, and certainly was fought with and overcome by Lena, until at last, before they were out of the wood, she was followed by 49 of the most grotesquely ugly, the most extravagantly abnormal animals imagination can conceive. To describe them were a hopeless task. I knew a boy who used to make animals out of heather roots. Wherever he could find 4 legs, he was pretty sure to find a head and a tail. His beasts were a most comic menagerie, and right fruitful of laughter. But they were not so grotesque and extravagant as Lena and her followers. One of them, for instance, was like a boa constrictor, walking on 4 little stumpy legs near its tail. About the same distance from its head were 2 little wings, which it was for ever fluttering, as if trying to fly with them. Curdie thought it fancied it did fly with them, when it was merely plodding on busily with its 4 little stumps. How it managed to keep up he could not think, till once when he missed it from the group. The same moment he caught sight of something at a distance, plunging at an awful serpentine rate through the trees, and presently, from behind a huge ash, this same creature fell again into the group, quietly waddling along on its 4 stumps. Watching it after this, he saw that, when it was not able to keep up any longer, and they had all got a little space ahead, it shot into the wood, away from the route, and made a great round, serpenting along in huge billows of motion, devouring the ground, undulating awfully, galloping as if it were all legs together, and its 4 stumps nowhere. In this mad fashion it shot ahead, and, a few minutes after, toddled in again amongst the rest, walking peacefully and somewhat painfully on its few 4s. From the time it takes to describe one of them, it will be readily seen that it would hardly do to attempt a description of each of the 49. They were not a goodly company, but well worth contemplating nevertheless, and Curdie had been too long used to the goblin's creatures in the mines and on the mountain to feel the least uncomfortable at being followed by such a herd. On the contrary, the marvellous vagaries of shape they manifested amused him greatly and shortened the journey much. Before they were all gathered, however, it had got so dark that he could see some of them only apart at a time, and every now and then, as the company wandered on, he would be startled by some extraordinary limb or feature, undreamed of by him before, thrusting itself out of the darkness into the range of his ken. Probably there were some of his old acquaintances among them, although such had been the conditions of semi-darkness in which alone he had ever seen any of them, that it was not likely he would be able to identify any of them. On they marched solemnly, almost in silence, for either with feet or voice the creatures seldom made any noise. By the time they reached the outside of the wood, it was morning twilight. Into the open trooped the strange torrent of deformity, each one following Lena. Suddenly she stopped, turned towards them, and said something which they understood, although to Curdie's ear the sounds she made seemed to have no articulation. Instantly they all turned and vanished in the forest, and Lena alone came trotting lithely and clumsily after her master. He looked up, almost expecting to see him pop the money in his cheek, but he had not yet got so far as that, though he was well on the road to it. Then he would have no other pocket. "I'm glad that stone is gone, anyhow," said the baker. "It was the bane of my life. I had no idea how easy it was to remove it. Give me your pickaxe, young miner, and I will show you how a baker can make the stones fly." He caught the tool out of Curdie's hand and flew at one of the foundation stones of the gateway. But he jarred his arm terribly, scarcely chipped the stone, dropped the mattock with a cry of pain, and ran into his own shop. Curdie picked up his implement and, looking after the baker, saw bread in the window and followed him in. But the baker, ashamed of himself and thinking he was coming to laugh at him, popped out of the back door, and when Curdie entered, the baker's wife came from the bakehouse to serve him. Curdie requested to know the price of a certain good-sized loaf. Now, the baker's wife had been watching what had passed since first her husband ran out of the shop, and she liked the look of Curdie. Also, she was more honest than her husband. Casting a glance to the back door, she replied, "That is not the best bread. I will sell you a loaf of what we bake for ourselves." And when she had spoken, she laid a finger on her lips. "Take care of yourself in this place, my son," she added. "They do not love strangers. I was once a stranger here, and I know what I say." Then, fancying she heard her husband, "This is a strange animal you have," she said in a louder voice. "Yes," answered Curdie. "She is no beauty, but she is very good, and we love each other, don't we, Lena?" Lena looked up and whined. Curdie threw her the half of his loaf, which she ate while her master and the baker's wife talked a little. Then the baker's wife gave them some water, and Curdie having paid for his loaf, he and Lena went up the street together.